A lot of our training was running out, hanging onto the wings of tiger moths to steer them on and off the runways. But then we got into navigation and a little bit of flying and done basic training on that. So, eventually, I had a problem, or so they seemed to think, with my kidneys. And I was scrubbed from flying duties and appointed to go for ground staff, which I didn't want, so I left and went to the army and spent 3 years in the army. We had a forced landing, yes.
What happened?
Well, the motor just cut. Doing silly things in the air, whether it was trying to scare me or not, the instructor that was flying. And the motor cut out, and fortunately we're in a clear paddock near the Temora hospital. So we landed there, and we not long landed, and another tiger moth landed alongside of us and said, "Righto, hop in that one, back up you go again." So that was that. They didn't muck about with you. They put you back in the air straight away if there was any mishap. Fortunately, it wasn't a crash. We were able to land. Oh God, the instructor's name, I can't think of that now either. It's too long ago for all those sort of things. I can't remember them at all. He had a Ryan single-wing monoplane. I've forgotten his name too. That could have been it, but he had it shedded in a private hangar himself, and of course no one was allowed to touch it. He flew that himself. It created quite a bit of jealousy with a lot of the fellas that were flying, actually. It was a very busy camp, because there were a lot of WAFs, of course, as well. It was constant flying, constant lectures, constant tutoring, because at that stage when we were here, the war wasn't over, you see, and it was the threats from the north that we were worried about. But there was also the other thing which I always blamed. There was plenty of aircrew and pilot training, and I think that, you know, if they could find something wrong with you and dump you out of flying training, that's what happened to you. So I always blamed that, and reckon that's what happened to me. I flew tandem quite a few times, but didn't do a solo. That was one of the things the Air Training Corps were not allowed to do, was a solo flight until you became permanent Air Force. We were still in that 16 to 18 bracket, and you couldn't go permanent Air Force until you got 18. So you were there, but there were two of the fellows that were with me. One was a Henley. I think he was killed in a crash somewhere after we'd left here, or after that group that had left here at that stage. I'm not quite sure whether it was a Henley or one of the others, actually. It's back in the dim, dark ages again, I was trying to think of. But the camp here was, it was terrific, actually. We enjoyed it. We enjoyed the life. And as I say, when you came through the main gate, B flight was down to your right. The Scrabbo's hut where we were at was up on the left, up on the side of the hill. And we camped there with the scrub pilots. They had a big sign on the door, Scrabbo hut. See, the attrition rate back then, you had to be 100% all the time. 98 was no good. If you got 98, you were scrubbed. Wireless air gunner, navigator, bomb aimer. Pilots, well, I had a surplus of them. I knew pilots that, that we talked together, that flew here in Australia for ages and never flew operational at all. They were just flying. At that stage, Temora was sort of slowly dying, and the RAF came here, and boom, it boomed again. We had to travel, of course, by train everywhere then. and it wasn't a matter of hours or something, it was days if you had to travel very far in a train, and pretty rugged conditions as well. But, you know, we all had our nice blue uniforms and so forth, but when we got on a train, we immediately took them off and packed them up and put on a pair of overalls so that they didn't get the uniform filthy. And one of the things I do remember from here was the bloody dog biscuits they gave us. My God. If you didn't have good teeth, you went hungry. They were those big square fellas like that, you know. And a heap of margarine on them. And that was it, you ate. But the meals actually weren't, the main meals weren't too bad, but lunch you got the dog biscuits. And we had to, you know, clean planes and do things like that, clean motors down, and we always thought what a shocking waste of fuel it was because they cleaned the motors down with petrol. When we were allowed, you know, about 5 gallons a month at home, and there was nothing to use 5 gallons to clean an aeroplane motor down. See, back there were that many here training. They had satellite drones. I think there was 4 of them, if I remember. I can't remember. But the crashes nearly always occurred out on the satellite drones. We'd hear about them. We never ever went out. We were never sent out to satellite drones. We were stopped here and done all of our training here. But there were quite a few crashes out on some of the satellite drones. Oh, there was one at Gidgenbung that I told you about. You know, a tiger moth went straight into the ground there, and the 2 fellows were killed, of course. And another fellow and myself were sent down to give the ambulance blokes a hand to pick the bodies up and so forth. And, you know, we were sprogs, as they called us then in those days, and righto, you fellas go and get them. The plane was completely burnt out, of course. And I can remember that because, you know, I went to get... There was nothing left of the front cockpit, the sprog actually. The instructor was in the rear cockpit. He was whole, and I thought, well, we'll get him out. So I pulled away a bit of the stuff and got him by the arm and went to pull it, and I went straight over his arm, just come clean out of his socket and slapped up my face. And I thought, well, you know, that's it. I'm not putting up with this too much longer. So that was down at Gidgenbung. He'd done a leap too close to the ground, apparently. There were all sorts of things happened.